So, you're building something with AI. Right out of the gate, you've got a massive decision to make. Are you going down the open source path, or are you going to stick with the closed commercial solutions? It's a choice that shapes everything else, so today we're going to decode the entire AI stack for you.
To get a sense of just how big this is, look at this number. Researchers from Harvard Business School crunched the numbers and estimated that the value of all open source software is a mind-blowing $8.8 trillion. It's not some niche thing. It is a huge, fundamental part of our entire tech world. And at its heart, that's all open source really is. But in the world of AI, wow, it is completely supercharged. The community is so incredibly fast. You'll see a cool new feature pop up in a commercial tool, and almost overnight, someone has recreated it and shared it for free as an open source project.
Which brings us right to the big question we're tackling in this explainer. What is the right path for what you're trying to build? Well, to figure that out, we've got to break the whole system down layer by layer.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start at the very core with the AI models. Then we'll look at the data that powers them, the orchestration layer that acts as the brain, and finally, the application that your users actually see. By the time we're done, you'll have a really clear way to think about this.
First up, let's talk about the absolute heart of the stack, the model. You can think of this as the engine of your entire system. The choice you make here, whether it's a giant language model or something small and specialized, is going to dictate so much of what comes next.
And here's a key thing to know. If you pick an open source model, you're not just picking the model. You also have to set up what's called an inference engine to actually make it run. That could be something simple like Ollama to run on your laptop, or a seriously powerful server engine like vLLM.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. It's the fundamental trade-off. With open source, you get access to this incredible universe of specialized, community-tuned models. Maybe you need one that's an expert in legal documents. There's probably a model for that, but you're on the hook for hosting and making sure it runs well. On the other hand, closed source is all about convenience. It's a simple API call. It's a fully managed service where you just don't have to think about the infrastructure.
Okay, so we have our engine. Let's move to the next layer and talk about the fuel, your data. This is how you take a general purpose model and give it the specific, relevant information it needs for your unique problem.
You know, what's interesting is that the actual process for preparing your data is pretty similar no matter which route you take. First, you use data connectors to pull everything in. Then you have to convert messy stuff like PDFs into a clean format. And finally, you use a process called vectorization to store that data in a special database so the model can find it. This whole process is often part of what's called a RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation Pipeline.
But here's the crucial part. Even though the steps are the same, the tools you choose make a huge difference. Open source data tools, the code is free. You can tweak them to your heart's content and deploy them anywhere. On-prem, in the cloud, you name it. Closed source tools are convenient and pre-built for sure, but you lose that ability to customize, and you have a way less say over where your private data actually lives.
All right, moving up the stack, we get to the orchestration layer. This is literally the brains of the whole operation. This is where you define how your AI system actually thinks, how it breaks down problems, makes a plan, and decides when to use other tools.
In the open source world, you do this with something called an agent framework. Think of it as a library that gives you the building blocks to create all that complex logic, from making simple function calls to setting up sophisticated feedback loops so the AI can improve its own answers. And here we go again. We see that same core trade-off, right? Control versus simplicity. Open source agent frameworks give you this incredibly fine-grained control over every single step of your AI's reasoning process. Closed platforms, though, they offer simpler API calls, but that simplicity can sometimes be too simple, locking you out of customizing the agent's logic exactly how you want. Okay, we've made it to the final layer, the application. This is the face of your solution. It's the user interface, the part that people actually see and interact with. On the open source side of the fence, you've basically got two flavors to choose from. You can go for a quick setup with tools like Gradio or Streamlit, which let you get a web interface up and running in minutes. Or you can go for total customizability with projects like OpenWebUI, giving you complete control to build the exact user experience you envision. Now, the closed source route is usually more about building from scratch. This typically means you're embedding the AI solution right into your existing website or your mobile app, making it feel like a totally seamless part of your product. So let's recap. We've walked through all four layers: models, data, orchestration, and the application. Now, let's bring it all home and help you figure out how to make the right choice by balancing these key factors.
At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this. If your project demands absolute control over every piece of the stack, if you need deep customization and the freedom to deploy anywhere, then open source is your answer. But if your main priority is the convenience of something pre-built, a fully managed service that just works, and just raw speed to get to market, then a closed source solution is probably the better fit.
And that brings us to the final question, the one you need to ask yourself. As you start thinking about your next AI project, what will you prioritize? Is it the power and flexibility that comes with total control, or is it the speed and simplicity that comes with total convenience? Your answer to that question will be your guide through this entire AI stack.